Ladies, gents and teddy bears, Ted and I are in the county of Somerset, where we visit former station RAF Charmy Down, a station that protected the Somerset skies at night, a base that had an unusual flying searchlight, and home to the first ever night fighter squadron to operate the P-61 Black Widow. RAF Charmy Down was built in 1940 and allocated to No. 10 Group of RAF Fighter Command. No. 10 Group covered the whole of the South West and parts of South Wales. The plan was for the station to be used as a satellite station for nearby RAF Colerne, which was about 2 miles away. Built with grass runways originally, it was later upgraded to the Class A runway configuration. If you're not familiar with that, it's a triangular configuration of a set of 3 hardened runway strips offering 6 directions of travel. With tarmac perimeter tracks, blister hangars and around 39 aircraft dispersal points, the first occupants was No. 87 Squadron, who were a night fighter squadron and arrived with their Hawker Hurricanes in 1941. Now, their squadron markings were LK Lima Kilo, their mission to defend cities, towns and targets set by German bombers in Bath, Bristol and the Somerset zones. Beautiful. Other aircraft, along with their squadrons, were also present here at RAF Charmy Down, including the Bolton Paul Defiant, the Westland Whirlwind, along with an aircraft that I even never heard of before, and maybe you haven't either. It was called the Turbine Light Havoc, or at least the Turbine Light. What is this? Well, I've often said in our shows about the evolution of tactics, radar, and aerial combat from as far back as World War I. But nighttime aerial combat offered many challenges, whether you were attacking or defending. It wasn't always the technology, but the size of the technology. An idea from the very man who innovated photographic reconnaissance, Sidney Cotton, had this idea of an airborne searchlight for night fighters, literally attaching a searchlight to a night fighter, and he put this into practice, linking up with William Helmore. They developed together the Turbine Light, which they took a Douglas A-20 Havoc, which the RAF designation was the A-20 Boston, and they installed a 2,700 million candela searchlight fitted in the nose of the Boston night fighter. This meant that the front guns were removed and basically it was literally a flying searchlight, and the idea was to try to illuminate an attacking enemy bomber, which would have been accompanied by a Hurricane night fighter. So the idea was to seek, light it up and destroy it. This idea did not last long though, because technology was improving with radar and faster aircraft such as the Mosquito. They did even install the turbine light in the Mosquito, but eventually the turbine light was withdrawn from service in 1943. Now the idea of searchlights was taken to another level by the Luftwaffe. They introduced a tactic using their own searchlights and their own flak fire. Yes, the absolutely crazy, daring, wilde Sauer tactic. But tune in to our live shows and I'll talk to you all about that. So Ted and I have had exclusive access with permission inside the control tower because it is on private land. So we managed to get permission to go inside and venture. Another Hurricane Squadron, 417 Royal Canadian Air Force, known as the City of Windsor Squadron, also formed at RAF Charmy Down until they went to Egypt and supported the Allies in the Western Desert and eventually Italy. 533 Squadron, another turbine light squadron, formed here at Charmy Down on the 8th of September 1942. They also flew their own Hawker Hurricanes as well. And finally, before Charmy Down was to be hosted by the United States Army Air Force, number 52 Operational Training Unit operated and trained airmen on the Supermarine Spitfire, and that was until November 1943. In late 1943, Charmy Down was now known as Station 487. What's going on here? Why the number and not the name? Well, first of all, it was now home to the United States Army Air Force's 4th Tactical Air Depot and part of the 9th Air Force. They were operating P-38 Lightnings and P-51 Mustangs. The United States Army Air Force stations in England were always numbered, and for good reason. Firstly, it prevented any pronunciation errors. Secondly, it gave the administrative clarity, and finally for security. Now let's give you another version of this. For example, the RAF used to have their squadron numbers actually painted on the sides of the aircraft. So, for example, 115 Squadron of RAF Marham, while they were operating the Wellington bombers, for example, used to literally have 115 painted on the side of their aircraft. This gave a bit of a problem for security reasons, because if you were an enemy aircraft, you could work out what squadron that was, find out where they were operating from, and you kind of knew where they were and what they were doing. So they scrapped that to the letter system. The United States Army Air Force also used this two-letter system as well, and they added their own tail marking system. Using a number for a station literally added a layer of security. RAF Charmy Down welcomed in March the 422nd Night Fighter Squadron, the very first squadron to operate the P-61 Black Widow. However, due to delays, they had to move to Yorkshire to operate the P-61 Black Widow. They were also joined by the 423rd and the 425th Night Fighter Squadrons. Although the squadrons arrived before the delivery of their P-61 Black Widows, they did keep up their flight time tallies on the Cessna UC-78 Bobcats and even the de Havilland Mosquitoes. Today, the 422nd are a test and evaluation squadron of the United States Air Force, operating a variety of aircraft such as the F-22A Raptor and the F-35A. The 423rd are today known as the 45th Reconnaissance Squadron. Now they operate the RC-135 variants such as the TC-135, the OC-135 and the WC-135. Finally, the 425th are still operational today with the F-16 Fighting Falcon. After the Second World War, the station returned to RAF use and was home to 92 Gliding School, which was part of the Air Training Corps. It was also home to a personnel resettlement centre for the Australian airmen who were waiting to return home. That was part of number 11 Royal Australian Air Force Personnel Reception Centre. In 1953, Charmy Down nearly had a new life given to it, but instead the elements and nature took over the station from 1955.